Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, we're continuing our series on great inventors, and we've finally gotten around to Albert Einstein.
Well, to be fair, I can only find one thing that he invented. Most of his other stuff was theories and like physics and that sort of stuff. So
You invent theories?
I
Is
don't know
that how
if
that works?
I think you develop theories
Develop
or
theories. Well,
discover.
I don't want to make a whole series called Great Theory Developers because that just doesn't sound as cool. So we're going with Great Inventors.
Okay.
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 So Albie, our good friend, born back in 1879 on March 14th. That's pretty close to when you were born, right, Luke?
Yeah, roundabouts.
Give or take.
This was in Ulm, Unterberg, Germany.
Well done.
I'm fairly certain I nailed the pronunciation.
Things he liked as a kid?
Oh,
Things
hold
he
on.
liked as a kid. Oh, you know what he died to? No, go ahead. Let me hear it. Ruin it.
So he died. Yeah.
Spoiler.
Episode over. So he died April 18th, 1955 in not the Sunshine State, the Garden State of Princeton, New Jersey.
Yeah, I won't even
Why
make
it's
any
called the Garden
negative.
State, I have no idea.
The pavement state.
If it's a
it's like
garbage garden.
It's like the whole Iceland is green and Greenland is icy thing. I bet that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
So things he liked as a kid: music, playing the violin, math, and science. Things he didn't like as a kid: school.
Being
just
told
like
what to do's.
Being told what to do. Just like all of the great minds of our times, he dropped out of school in 1894. So he was like 15ish at the time when he dropped
Somewhere in
out.
that neighborhood.
Then he moved off to Switzerland and he got back into school later on. And then eventually he got accepted to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic Institute in Zurich. So that's kind of interesting.
So before you go any further, I want to go.
Done.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Oh, okay, good. So I'm calling this the early years of Albert Einstein. So Albert Einstein was born to a middle-class Jewish family in Germany.
He was.
His father, Herman, with two N's on the end, kind of a funny way to spell Herman.
Odd.
So he was a bit of a train wreck, his dad, unfortunately.
He died in a train wreck?
No, he was a train wreck.
Oh, okay.
He was a train wreck. So apparently, electricity generation was happening at the time. He worked at a factory and had a business that did like transformer type stuff. That started to fail. He tried all these other kind of businesses that didn't really do all that well. So not super stable. You mentioned, he drops out of school. Actually, his parents ditched him for a little bit. So when he was like 15 or 16, they were like, hey, we can't work here anymore. They moved to Milan. They leave him at this boarding school. And he also left Germany because the draft was happening. So he was a draft dodger apparently as well. So not only was he like leaving school, but also I think right around 16, 17, you were able to serve in the military back then. So he was avoiding the military because he was a bit of a pacifist. A bit of one. So Pauline, his mom, and Herman moved to Milan. 6 months later, he's dodging a draft, dropping out of school, and joins his parents in Milan. You'd mentioned he applied to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School, but was denied. He failed some like initial tests.
He did.
Like he wasn't good at the French. He wasn't good at the English. He wasn't good at some of the non-scientific mathematical stuff.
That's some of the big misconception, right? Like everybody's heard that he like was bad at school and that he was even like failing math and stuff like that. And that's a lie. Like he was actually really, really good at math and he was a good student. He just like couldn't get into schools like that because of not knowing French, which is hokey.
Yeah, so he actually ended up He did graduate from high school eventually in 1896. At the same time, denouncing his German citizenship.
That was a fun fact I had for you. You're right. He was like, "I'm sick of you, Germany. I'm out," and he became a Swiss citizen.
Can you do that?
5 years later?
Is that like something you just say? Like, can you just denounce something?
I think there's probably a formal process that you go through to actually make it happen. But I don't really plan on denouncing my citizenship anytime soon.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So there is an interesting debate. You were talking about these misconceptions. So there is a
mhm,
debate. So I have diagnosed dyslexia. I've been dealing with it my whole life. And
I've noticed.
yeah, thank you.
I can confirm.
And it hasn't stopped me. Look at me. I'm a successful podcaster right now. I mean, come on, rolling in the monies. But there's actually a debate because a lot of people and organizations and writers and historians just claim he was dyslexic. But
Mm,
if you think about it, there's probably no real easy way to confirm that if they weren't able to actually test for
yeah.
dyslexia the way they are now. They just leverage the fact that he was really good at spatial things and he was really good at visual things as a young child. He didn't speak apparently until he was
Mhm.
like 2 years old. So they thought he had Asperger's, perhaps, because apparently that's one of the potential things that happens to young children that have Asperger's. So there was this debate whether he had Asperger's, dyslexia, whatever it was. A lot of organizations, like the ones that are specifically, helping people with dyslexia and all the stigma, use Albert Einstein as kind of like I don't know what the word is. Whatever. There is like their
I
like
would help, but I
rally
quit
point.
listening. So,
But he was actually really good at mathematics and really good at physics and really good at geometry. So I mean, if you're good at math, you're probably not this like I'm terrible at math because I just get it wrong because I'm always flipping numbers
you do
around.
always flip the numbers. I mean,
So,
our listeners even hear you flip the dates
oh,
around and stuff.
all the
Like
time.
it's a serious thing. But
Yeah.
I do feel like you're just trying to get someone like into the club. Like you're pushing for like this is our
Yeah.
charter
A
member of
little
the
bit. A little
dyslexia
bit.
club. I don't know where you were going with this next, but my next thing is when he met a nice young lady at
Oh,
the
Switzerland.
university.
Yeah, so
Yes.
he got a so he became a Swiss citizen. He's at
Mhm.
university. I want to hear you pronounce her name.
So I quit listening to you as you were talking because I was thinking of Seinfeld and in the Malva episode. So that's where I was at. But I'm gonna say Melva Merrick,
Milva Merrick
Milva
is
Merrick.
whenever I listened to a bit of a History Channel video, and they called her Milva Merrick.
We're gonna call her Malva Merrick, and
Milva.
so he met this lady, and his parents were all like, "You can't marry her." So instead, they decided to have an illegitimate child together. And since they
Yeah.
couldn't afford to get married because they're just kids in school, Malva went home to her parents, had the kid, and then sadly, like no one really knows what happens to
It's like
her.
one of the big mysteries. So they think she either had scarlet fever and
Hmm.
died, perhaps around the age of 2, or
Hmm.
was sent to an orphanage. And there's like zero record of what happened after that. Which could you
Like,
imagine?
how
Like,
bizarre, right?
could you imagine like your dad being Albert Einstein and you don't know it, or you're like a descendant? Like that's just crazy.
That is crazy. So eventually, after that, he lands a job in a patent office, which doesn't sound very entertaining to me.
Not at all.
And then they got married in 1903. So they had 3 kids in the long run. They had illegitimate Liesel, Lieserl.
I
I don't
didn't
know.
catch the name.
Hans Albert, and then
Hans.
Edward, Eduard. So, those
They
Germans
were
and
born
Swiss
in
calling stuff weird.
1904 and 1910.
Oh, well, there we go. Apparently in 1905, it was a big year for
Dun, dun,
Albie.
dun, dun.
At the ripe old age of 26, Einstein came up with 4 papers that were of, a little bit of importance while he was bored at the patent office. Like, this was his hobby, I suppose. So, the first paper is where he applied quantum theory, which anyone who listens to this show knows that once the word quantum is involved, I back off.
Yep.
That's why we haven't done Einstein thus far. So, he used quantum theory, applied it to light in order to explain the phenomenon known as photoelectric effect, by
Mhm.
which a material will emit electrically charged particles when it's hit by light. How someone comes up with that, I don't know. I'm barely able to run a podcast, so I think that's impressive. The second article was Einstein's experimental proof of the existence of atoms, which apparently weren't a thing back then. I don't know what they thought everything was made up of, but he came up with the idea for the proof of the existence of atoms, which he got by analyzing uh, the Browning motion, which is tiny particles suspended in water.
I thought that's when you like grill meat.
Oh, what is that? We had that episode
The Maillard
on
effect.
the Maillard effect. That's right. Now there's two more, but before we get into the next two papers that are a little bit more famous, we'll say, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's maybe the History Channel, since I basically watched their video for this episode.
It should be. I was thinking maybe it's like Germany, denounce your citizenship or something, but we don't.
Germany.com.
We don't have any sponsors this episode. Wah, wah. But we do have a couple shout outs.
Let's hear them.
David J., a mechanical engineer from Tennessee Tech University.
Oh, Mud Ducks go.
No idea what they might be. Mud Duck sounds good. Getting some stickers in the mail and doing his part to land us a sponsor. So I approve of that behavior, David. Evan D. is my next shout out. Suggested we do a topic on marine engineering. He does this for a living after he studied at the United States Merchant Marine Academy. I didn't know that academy was a thing. I didn't know marine engineering is a thing.
I didn't know it either.
Feels like something we should look into.
Yeah, for sure.
If any of you have topics we should look into, if you want some stickers, if you went and supported the Mud Ducks, I don't know, anything like that, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the podcast. And as always, you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
Do you ever worry about your smart devices recording what you're saying?
Oh, I know they do for sure. Like, absolutely, positively for sure.
I sing some pretty inappropriate songs, and I feel like I don't want that being
So
recorded.
I don't do any devices in any places where I might not have a shirt on.
Oh, that's smart.
So like
nobody wants to see that.
Nobody wants to see me without a shirt on. Fact. But yeah, I don't have any, like I see people with like Alexa devices and like other devices like in their bedrooms and like in their bathrooms, they have them for like playing music and stuff. It's like, oh no. That if that microphone is always on to hear me ask a question, then that camera is always on broadcasting pictures of me shirtless to Jeff Bezos.
Don't worry, I have cameras placed throughout your office, so it's all good.
So
next,
two more papers. What do we got?
The third, and apparently the most famous one, was titled
Mildly.
On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies. This is where Einstein confronted the apparent contradiction between two principal theories, Luke, of physics. Our good friend Isaac Newton's concept of absolute space and time, and James Maxwell's idea of the speed of light being constant. So to do this, Einstein came up with his special theory of relativity at 26 when he was bored at work, which said that the laws of physics are the same even for objects moving in different inertial frames. So at constant speeds relative to each other, and that the speed of light is constant in all inertial frames. So
you know what I do when I'm bored at work? Research for a podcast.
Yeah, but think of all of the value we're providing to everyone, unlike Einstein.
So the fourth paper, James, what do we got?
Fourth. So this is the one that people actually
This is the
know,
big one,
right? They know the equation. This concerned the fundamental relationship between mass and energy. Concepts that before this were thought to be completely separate ideas, like they didn't relate to each other. Einstein's equation, which I think we all probably know, E equals mc squared, which is energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, basically saying mass and energy or matter are interchangeable, which is crazy town. I don't know how you
just saying
something
that
like
sounds
that.
weird.
Yeah. They're basically saying they're different forms of the same thing. So mass and energy are somehow just a different form of the same thing. And it turns out he's probably right about that. I don't know how you come up with that, but good for you, Albie. And so that was his fourth biggie.
Yeah, and that was like obviously the one that kind of spawned his. He was what they called like one of the first like celebrity scientists. Like you heard of a lot of these other people, but he was one of the first ones that like he had a bounty on his head
He
in
did. Yeah.
in Germany because they got all these German scientists together to refute some of his papers just because the Germans were mad that he left. And there's all this kind of weird stuff. But right around when he was writing these 4 papers. Unfortunately, his marriage was falling apart. Whew.
Well,
He was so
I'm going to
he,
let you get into that because you'll
yeah.
handle it more maturely than
Well,
I
of
do.
course, more maturely. So, yeah, about as mature as you can be for cheating on your wife with your cousin. So his marriage is falling apart, right?
Who
So
hasn't been there?
he marries this brilliant physicist. His wife was a physicist. He met her at school. She's brilliant. She's basically relegated to becoming, his maid. And there's some things where people wrote where he specifically told her that. And his wife got really, kind of paranoid about things. He got paranoid. He starts having an affair with his cousin, which is weird. He ended up marrying her eventually, which
Don't knock it, Luke.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Jeez, I don't know how that's legal. But the deal he made with his first wife was.
I have it written down. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear it.
Okay, so he had a contract with her. So they were in love. They had these babies, all that stuff. Kind of fell out of love a little bit, right? And he had a contract that said, A, you will make sure, 1, that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order. 2, that you will receive my 3 meals regularly, or that I will receive my 3 meals regularly in my room. 3, that my bedroom and study are kept neat, and especially that my desk is left for my use only. And then B, you will renounce all personal relationships with me insofar as they are not completely necessary for social reasons.
Oh my goodness.
He further demanded, you will stop talking to me if I request it. And she accepted the terms.
Because you know why? She was getting his money from the Nobel Prize that he eventually won. That was the deal he made.
And even, and kind of like a post-nup, I suppose, where they said, if we divorce, part of the settlement is Einstein will give away all future Nobel Prize winning like monies that he win. And keep in mind that they got divorced before he won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Imagine being so confident that you're going to win this, that you have it in your post-nup that the money's going to go to someone else.
Yeah, that's a little crazy.
Nuts.
So, do you have 1932?
I probably do, but I'd have to scroll back up to it. So let's.
So 1932, he has to leave Germany forever. His life is threatened, and he also has the 30s are just terrible for him. So
can I back up real quick to the 20s and whatnot?
Please. Oh, geez.
Okay, so 09, he quit the patent office. He went back to the University of Zurich. Then in 1913, he went back to Germany to become the director of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Physics in Berlin. So that's kind of like how he got back to Germany to then, have to leave all around again. 1915, Albie published the general theory of relativity. And that's the theory that found that gravity and motion can affect time and space, and that these things can, like, I guess it's saying that gravity can bend light rays, and that somehow this was then proven by people, like 2 expeditions in 1919 that performed experiments during a solar eclipse and found that light rays from distant stars were deflected or bent by gravity from the sun. I don't know how you prove this stuff. That makes no sense. How do you do it in 1919? I don't know. But then in 1921 is when he won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah. How did I skip that? Sorry.
He then threw all of his money at his ex-wife so that he could continue with his cousin.
Fun fact, though, he wins the Nobel Prize for physics. It wasn't for the theory of relativity. This cat's so smart that the biggest theory that has ever happened in physics, probably ever, even up to this point, isn't what he won the Nobel Prize for. It was for the photoelectric effect.
Yeah.
But he stunned the audience when he was doing his acceptance speech, and all he talked about was the theory of relativity.
Isn't that so funny? Like, that's so perfect. For those of you who haven't checked it out, go listen to our episode about how lasers work. Because if you're talking about the photoelectric effect, that's the emission of electrons when magnetic radiation, like light, hits a material. And this is kind of like the foundations of lasers,
Yeah.
right?
You could also check out our Nobel Prize episode too.
Oh,
Totally forgot we did that one.
nice, Luke. Well done.
All
Okay, so
right.
back to the 30s.
Back to the 30s. The 30s were exceptionally difficult for Einstein. His one son ended up being schizophrenic. One of his best friends throughout his entire life had died. His wife, his buddy, killed himself, and then his cousin wife.
Yeah,
his cousin.
That's the technical term.
I'm pretty sure.
Why didn't he move to West Virginia instead of New Jersey?
There goes our West Virginia audience. So his cousin wife, Elsa, she dies in 1936. And it was just a really, really bad year for him. And he also had tons of fears about his work being used for the creation and development of the atomic bomb.
And for good reason.
Yeah, because,
because it was the basis of all of it.
It was the basis of the whole entire thing. So 1935, on a high note, he finally is granted permanent residency in the U.S., and he actually became a U.S. citizen in 1940.
Though we thought he was a spy, basically his entire life and existence in the U.S.
J. Edgar Hoover. Eddie, as we like to call him. So he just assumed he was a Soviet spy. And there is a Soviet spy connection. He had this girlfriend that was a spy that he was messing around with. But apparently his FBI file was like 1,800 pages long.
Oh, my goodness.
That the Hoovers maintained on him. And he ended up not being a spy, actually. But
before we get into the rest of the 30s, how about we take a break for this week's Luke's Rant?
Okay, so here's my rant. So if you're the person that develops or discovers an element, why would you name an element after somebody else? So Albert Einstein, there's an element, check out our element show, called Einsteinium. I forget which one that was, but it's called Einsteinium. It's the 99th element on the periodic table. It's obviously named after Albert Einstein, but he had absolutely nothing to do with the discovery, nothing to do with the research. And like, if I'm the person that discovered it, like maybe he just had a bad last name, like Smith or something like that. Like, I don't know how.
Einstein didn't discover it, is what you're telling me. Yeah. But we were like, we got to name this after him anyways.
Yeah, I get it's like an homage, but relativity is like, he's famous enough. You don't need to name an atom after him, or name an element after him, rather. So I just think it was odd. So whoever it was, and if you check out our show, I totally forget who it was, there are a group of scientists or person that discovered the 99th element, Einsteinium. Why would you name it after Albert Einstein?
I don't know.
It seems odd. Like, if you and I were the scientists that discovered the 99th element, I'm sure you and I it would be like Herzik would be the name.
Yeah, it would be, for sure.
Or something like that. I would definitely be self-serving and name it after myself.
I think we've made it very clear. If you listen to our Kodak episode, if you listen to any of these things, you name the stuff after yourself.
For sure.
That's what you do. That's what we would do.
For sure. John Deere. I mean, all these big ones, they name stuff after themselves.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, that's my rant.
All right, so back to the 30s, Luke. You mentioned his wife died. You mentioned the nuclear bomb kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So again, E equals MC squared, that sort of stuff, all helped with the basis of the development of the atomic bomb. In 1939, at the urging of the Hungarian physicist Leo Salazar Slytherin, I don't think that's actually his name, but
don't think it is. We'll go with it though.
This is Lurd. Einstein wrote to President Frankie D. Roosevelt saying, hey, you should approve the funding for the development of uranium before Germany does, because they're going to get the upper hand. Then, Einstein, who became a citizen, like you mentioned, also retained his Swiss citizenship, which is interesting, was never actually asked to participate in the Manhattan Project, as the government thought he was a spy and were concerned about his views as a pacifist, which I guess that makes sense, though. You'd think the biggest brain ever you would want as part of the team. If you haven't, check out our episode on the Manhattan Project. That's a really cool one.
We got a lot of.
I think it really shows like how much stuff he touched, though. Like without inventing it, he really influenced a lot of this. and that was that. A couple fun facts for you though.
Shoot.
1952, Einstein declined an offer to become president of Israel.
He felt like he wasn't qualified enough.
Yeah, he did. Fair. I mean, he's probably a little
I'm
socially
not,
awkward, so.
yeah, I'm not exact, but apparently he wasn't. He was actually
Hmm?
apparently he was a
I
pretty
mean, he
savvy.
seduced his cousin. How bad could he be?
Apparently he was a ladies' man. You know, he was very well, and he had this kind of the way they described it was he had this kind of like, I don't know, nonchalantness to how he behaved. You know,
Hmm.
he didn't comb his hair, he didn't wear socks, he smoked a pipe. He was very, very bizarre.
I feel
Uh,
like I fit a lot of those
oh, you
categories.
you smoke a pipe and don't wear socks. I mean, your hair is clearly one that you don't. That you oh please oh that's the last thing I need to see is your foot. Another fun fact: apparently, he was so good at the violin, which we mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
that had he not gone into physics, he probably would have become a professional musician.
Oh, wow. That's very impressive. Huh. I wonder if most great musicians are good at math as well, because I'm pretty okay at math, but I'm terrible at everything else. So,
Yeah,
hmm. Not so fun fact, as you mentioned already, in 1955, Albie died of an aortic aneurysm,
they said he
which,
didn't have to die, so he went to the hospital 2 days before,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like, "Hey, let's get in there," and he was like, "You know what? When it's my time, it's my time," and apparently it was his time.
Yeah, apparently. Did you see that like he had like they have like his last words documented, but his true last words were kind of lost forever because he spoke them to his nurse, but he spoke them in German and she didn't speak German. So whatever it was that he said right before he died has just gone away, never to be known. So
Wow, that's
interesting.
deep.
Yeah. I have some fun facts about him if you want to get into that, but do you have more about Albie or
No,
anything
no, I
else?
have a quick game we can do at the end, but we
Oh,
can
I
get into
love
your fun
games.
facts.
Okay. I don't know if you mentioned this. You mentioned his parents, but his parents were afraid not only that like he might be autistic or have Asperger's or anything like that, but also they were afraid early on that he was deformed because when he was born, his head was so large and misshapen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that.
And the physicians were like, "No, no, no, it's all good here. It'll
It'll
be
catch up.
okay." Yeah, and like a few weeks later, his head became normal again. We talked about the contract with his wife, which
Mhm.
I'm thinking about implementing. Sounds
Yep.
like a good gig. When he divorced, oh no, I told you about the future Nobel prizes.
Mhm.
Oh, Einstein apparently proposed an alternate Big Bang theory in 1931, which is really strange.
Yeah, apparently he worked on it for a while and then deemed that it just wasn't and his theory was it was always expanding. It didn't start at a singularity the
Mhm.
way the Big Bang says it starts. And I think he soon kind of was like, "Yeah, you know what? I don't think I'm right and I'm going to let this go."
I'm not sure. Like anything I read was more like he was like, "Yeah, maybe this is interesting. Meh. I have other things to be doing," and just kind of like never looked at it again. But we kind of lost those papers for a really long time in some library one somewhere, and then somebody dug them up again.
Another fun fact, he developed a refrigerator with a buddy.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's the one invention. Like if you think of he invented something, it
that's
was a
fair.
gas compressor refrigerator that had no moving parts. Yada yada yada. Didn't really make it to market because like soon after, like Freon based refrigerators became all the rage, and yeah,
Yeah. You mentioned he didn't wear socks. I thought that was odd. Another one, Einstein's memory was super, super bad. Like
yeah.
everybody knew it was bad. He couldn't remember dates. He couldn't remember his own phone number. In a really funny story, I guess, yeah, really funny story. As a student, one of his teachers claimed that he had a memory like a sieve. And one time when he was on a train, a conductor showed up and was like, "Yo, buddy, let me see your ticket." And Einstein started looking through all of his pockets for his ticket and couldn't find it. And the conductor recognized him as Albert Einstein and was like, "Oh, all good here. You can ride for free, do your thing." And Einstein said, "Thank you, but if I don't find my ticket, I'm not going to know when to get off of the train."
I don't know where I'm
What?
going.
How is that a thing?
Well, just like I do that myself. So there's times I get in the car, like, and I don't know if you do this. So speaking of
I
terrible
get in the
memory,
car
like,
sometimes.
like I know, like I need to go to South Hills Village Mall, right, from where I live. Like I know, and I get in the car and I make two turns to get out onto like the main road to start going, and I have no clue where to go. It's like I really, really have to think about the direction and, is this way the right way? And it happens to me
Yeah.
all the time. And I don't know if that's just an age thing
I don't
because
know.
I am
I
getting
I
up
do
there.
that. You are. Yeah, I mean, you were born by Einstein's time frame, so I have that problem. Usually I get out of the Squirrel Hill tunnels and then it's like, do I take 376 or 579? And that's really where the issues start. Last fun fact, Einstein loved sailing, but he was really, really bad at it. Like so bad that his neighbors in Long Island were like known to help him like right up his capsized boat regularly. And apparently, that didn't stop him from sailing. Neither did his inability to swim, which, if you're going to fall in the water all the time, I feel like is just a majorly bad decision. All right,
Ready
you have a
for a
game.
game?
Oh
Okay.
gosh, yes.
So I'm going to give you, there's going to be one, two, three, four, five, six quotes. And one of them is not Albert Einstein. You have to pick the one that is not.
He's so 5 of the 6. He
Five of the
said,
six are him.
"Oh
So this
goodness."
and I'll give you bonus points if you can figure out who the person is that's not him.
If you're the one who said it, I'm going to be so
Oh, no, no,
mad.
no, no. This is a famous person.
Okay,
You ready?
go
So,
ahead.
never memorize anything you can look up.
It's fair.
Logic will get you from A to Z. Imagination will get you everywhere.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things you don't know anything about. Things you wouldn't understand, things you couldn't understand, things you shouldn't understand.
Oh boy, that's deep.
I am enough of an artist to freely draw upon my imagination. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And then the last one is two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And
Wasn't that
I'm
only
not
5 things?
and I'm not sure about the universe. Oh yeah, last one. Sorry, I did
Jeez,
them out
this
of
is like
order.
a trick.
If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself.
Mm. So I feel like there are two about imagination. So I'm gonna say that those are him. What was the second one? Could you repeat it? Do you
This,
remember?
so I'm gonna send these to you,
Oh
and you can
goodness.
pick them. That way, you don't if you want to read them back
Okay,
yourself.
I'm going to. This is serious. People don't understand what's on the line right here. Literally, all of the money that we're making off this episode will go to Luke if I don't get this right. Okay, two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. Got it. I am enough of an artist to draw freely upon my imagination. Explain to a 6-year-old you don't understand it yourself. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Logic will get you from A to Z. Imagination, I'm going to say, is him again. Never memorize something that you can look up. Okay. There's a lot of things about me you don't know anything about. Oh, Pee Wee Herman. Number 6 there. There's a lot of things you know about me you don't know anything about, Dottie. Things you wouldn't understand. Things you couldn't understand. Things you shouldn't understand.
I left the Dottie out
Uh-huh,
whenever I read
yeah.
it to you the first time.
Once you send that, oh,
I
that would have
love
been
that. I love that you know that was Pee Wee Herman. I'm literally crying if
oh,
you can't
Luke,
see
that
me.
was wonderful.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness. I
goodness,
am
that's so
literally
good.
crying. Oh my goodness, that was
Oh,
good.
it's
That was
good that
fun,
you left
James.
Dottie out because I would have surely
You would have
missed it
nailed it
then.
with Dottie.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for that
Whew.
game, Luke. Hopefully, you all learned something about Albert Einstein, his life, his cousin marrying, his Nobel Prize money giving away, and that he did not say things that Pee Wee Herman said. If any of you have any suggestions on episodes you'd like us to cover, if you just want some amazing stickers, if you just want to say hi or tell us a neat story, how about you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com? And until next time.
See ya.